Welcome in, everyone. I'm Jay Smith, and alongside Bradley Kendall, this is After Further Review, Tiger Vision's college football rundown show. Bradley, we got 1 week left. Conference championships are in the book. The playoff teams are set. Let's dive right into it after further review.
After further review, wait, hold on. Did Clemson just score again? I believe they did.
They may have.
I'm pretty sure they just scored again because it was that bad in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have seen that personally. It was pretty fun to watch.
Great game to watch. Great game to watch. We'll get into the ACC Conference Championship in a little bit, but let's go ahead and start now with the Friday night game. We had USC beating Stanford 31-28 for the Pac-12 title in a game that was really entertaining to watch.
It was great. They reserved the Friday night game for the game that really didn't matter, and it turns out it kind of did matter at the end when, I think a lot of people started talking more about USC as the days went on, but it was a very entertaining game, especially you had the one of the Heisman contenders, Bryce Love, coming in. He was a little banged up, but was able to still get 125 yards, and what I thought was amazing was all the records he set this year. This was kind of incredible. His FBS record, 12th run of 50 yards or more in this game. So he's got one a game right there. Unfortunately, with Stanford, they couldn't hold off Sam Darnold and USC. But I think going into the game, I liked Stanford, and I was pleased with what I saw. It was a very back and forth, entertaining game.
Yeah, I mean, Darnold was 17 for 24, 325 yards, and he had 2 touchdown passes, I believe. And what was really impressive is, USC was able to win this game with a goal line stand after putting together a 99-yard drive.
Yeah.
And, it was really honestly a game that a lot of people, like you said, weren't paying a lot of attention to because it was a conference championship that really had no impact on the playoff. I think the USC team thought they might have a slim chance of getting in, but obviously they're sitting, I think, at 10 now after this past week's college football rankings and the final rankings, so it did not really matter. But, I mean, yeah, overall, this was a great game. Really impressed with USC getting it done. They've gotten 11 wins this season, so overall, you really can't say that they had a bad year.
Not at all, no.
For their standards, though, obviously they would have liked to have been, I think, a little bit more prominent in the college football playoff talk.
But if you are rebuilding a program, it's hard to believe USC was in rebuild mode, but they were. Clay Helton's done a great job. He took him to a Rose Bowl, got him a W there, and then he got him a Pac-12 championship game. So if things go on the way they should, if it continues on, next year would be the playoffs. So that would be his main goal next year. So the trajectory is high for USC, and it's looking bright. Sam Darnold just needs to go back to college. That's the big part.
I mean, you look at the other side of the ball, though, with Stanford. They had a 9-4 year. If they get a bowl win, that's 10 wins for David Shaw. They've obviously been consistent now for several years. I mean, both of these teams, I think, right now are kind of distancing themselves from the rest of the Pac-12. We'll see now what I think UCLA. They have a new coach this year because Moore got fired.
Moore got fired. They hired Chip Kelly.
And then you've got Herm Edwards now at Arizona State.
You did have Willie Taggart leave from Oregon. Now he's at Florida State. FSU. So a little bit of turnover there, but Oregon wasn't really.
Should we break out the turnover chain for that?
Yeah, they're bringing in 2 really good coaches. I don't know, Evan. What do you feel? Do you feel like Stanford and USC are leagues better than anybody else in the Pac-12, or do you feel like ASU with Herm Edwards and now Chip Kelly going to UCLA makes it more competitive?
And Evan, I think Oregon did have a turnover chain. They just created it this past week, so you're not wrong there.
I don't know. To answer your question, Jay, I think the disparity in the Pac-12, I think the gap in between the talent and the teams, probably a lot smaller in the ACC, as we saw Miami, clearly the second best team in the ACC and clearly inferior to Clemson. I don't think the gap is that wide in the Pac-12. I think USC, Clay Helton's got them kind of on the brink of where they were back in the day with Reggie Bush and Matt Leinart, but obviously not to that talent yet. Stanford has been just really solid over the past couple of years. David Shaw's done a fantastic job there, and having Andrew Luck didn't hurt either. I think Chip Kelly's going to come in. I think he can make an immediate impact, and I really hope he does, just for the sake of competition and the sake of the Pac-12 not really being favored in the playoff picture in the first 3-4 years of it. So I'm looking forward to the difference Chip Kelly can make. Herm Edwards hadn't coached college football in like 30 years, so might be a little rusty, might be some growing pains there for Arizona State, but I think you could get them relevant. Colorado, we saw, can play some good football, so I think the Pac-12's on the rise. Future's bright. I'm looking forward to seeing what the Pac-12 can do in the next 3, 4, 5 years.
I mean, you can't count out Chris Peterson either. I mean, if Mike Leach decides to stay there too, I mean, that's 2 great teams in Washington. So I think the future's bright. I think top to bottom, you could say that if you look at a team from the very best team to the very worst team, they got a pretty good amount of solid, mediocre teams that are on the rise. So that's definitely encouraging going forward for them.
Yeah, I mean, and you got to remember, they're not the only conference that was left out of the playoff this year.
Amazingly enough, yeah.
And that leads us kind of into the next game, next conference championship game that we want to talk about, which is the Big Ten. We had Ohio State beating the Badgers, giving them their first loss of the year. It was a 27-21 victory for the Buckeyes. This game was I don't want to say it was unsurprising because I picked Wisconsin to win this game.
Yeah.
I felt like they were going to get it done. Horny Rook didn't surprise. I mean, he threw 2 interceptions and no touchdowns. That was pretty much par for the course. J.T.
Yeah.
Barrett went 12 for 26, 200 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions.
They won it on the ground, though.
They did.
That's where they ended up winning the game.
They did. And, I mean, I think, with Ohio State and all the talk after that game on whether or not they deserved to get in with their resume and winning the conference championship, at the end of the day, the committee didn't feel like they did, but Buckeyes, again, still get 11 wins. Urban Meyer continues to do great things with Ohio State, so I don't think that they can be too disappointed with their season.
Not at all, especially from where they came from. I mean, trying to dig yourself out of a hole, a 31-point hole, you could say, to Iowa is pretty tough to do, but they almost did it. I think they really needed one of those 59-0 wins like they had a couple years ago to gain some traction in the playoff talk. I thought it was crazy. J.K. Dobbins, we were talking about how they won it on the ground. I mean, if this man doesn't transfer to Indiana, he better start playing all of his games in Indiana because both games he's played in the state, earlier this year he had 181 yards, and then the Big Ten championship game, 174 yards. So really coming out party for him. He's going to be great to look forward to next year. I thought this was kind of incredible. You talked about the quarterback battle, Barrett coming off of surgery, and then Hornibrook, who we said have struggled. None of them had the highest QBR in this football game.
Wow.
The backup quarterback for Wisconsin did. Garrett Groshek was 1 for 1 with 9 yards, so he had the highest QBR. But I mean, yeah, the game was one in the trenches. Wisconsin just gave up too many big plays in the end
On defense.
Their
defense,
something you hadn't seen all year.
They've been great tackling in open space all season long. That's kind of been, their forte. And for whatever reason, they just weren't able to get it done defensively. Gave up too many points to the Buckeyes. I don't know, Evan. You feel like there's any key takeaways to this game? Is this a disappointing year for the Big Ten because they didn't get a playoff team in, or do you feel like still because you had 2 teams in the conference championship, both with at least 11 wins, that it was still a successful year?
I don't think you can doubt the success of the Big Ten. I mean, we've seen how tough it is to come out of that conference, having to go through the likes of Harbaugh at Michigan and James Franklin at Penn State, and even Michigan State likes to play spoilers. So I don't think there's any doubt that the Big Ten's a solid conference, but I think they are probably feeling a little bit slighted of not getting into the playoff this year. I think a lot of people up in Columbus probably thought that the Buckeyes deserved to. I do think it's kind of funny that of the 2 conference champions who got snubbed from the playoff, being Ohio State out of the Big Ten and USC out of the Pac-12, they're playing each other in the Cotton Bowl on December 29th. So I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but I thought that was kind of funny. But I think this was Wisconsin's time to shine, and they just didn't show up. I mean, they didn't trail in the fourth quarter all year up until this game, in which they entered the fourth quarter trailing and also exited the fourth quarter trailing, so not good for the Badgers there. It also snapped Wisconsin's 13-game win streak, which was the longest in the country. So all Wisconsin had to do was take care of business. They would have gone undefeated, maybe gotten some of that respect they thought they deserved, would have made it into the playoffs easily, and they just didn't get the job done. Ohio State at the end of the day, just too tough and too good. So like I said, can't doubt Urban Meyer and can't discredit him for how well he's done up in Columbus, but they'll probably feel a little bit salty about not getting into the playoff. But I think if they can beat USC in that Cotton Bowl, I don't think all is lost for Ohio State or for the Big Ten. There's always next year.
And it's a pretty down year for basketball in the Big Ten too. So this is definitely going to be a tough pill to swallow, especially for Wisconsin. Just because I think if you look at the current landscape of the Big Ten, the division that they're in, they've been dominating it. And looking forward, you've got 2 new coaching hires. You got Scott Frost going to Nebraska. And you've also got P.J. Fleck, who's at Minnesota right now. So teams are going to start to creep up. I think if they were going to win it, this was the one year they really had a great chance to do it, just because of the way that the schedule played out. But for Ohio State, I think a little bit disappointing from where they started. But that Iowa loss was what did it to them. I mean, plain and simple, that was it.
It was, I mean, and they played great this past month, trying to recover from that, save a little bit of face. But I think at the end of the day, we touched on, it was just too much in the committee's eyes. The most entertaining part of this game for me was the turf grass repair that went on. I don't remember exactly what point it was in the game.
It was 12 minutes left in the fourth quarter because I remember I was in the Bank of America Stadium trying to refresh and check this game, and it kept pausing at 12 minutes, and I was like, okay, either the connection is this bad or something happened.
No, it took them about 10 minutes for maintenance to get the turf back to playing standards because the refs pretty much stopped the game immediately. I do remember flipping to it, and they had just started that process, and it was kind of interesting to watch. I've never seen that during a real game, having issues with the turf. But, again, going back to the game, I think a lot of people will say, oh, Wisconsin was exposed. I don't know if that's entirely necessarily true. I think they played a great Ohio State team, but I think at the end of the day, since Ohio State won this game, their loss to Iowa was too severe for them to get a chance at a college football
They
playoff
just were
berth.
not consistent enough. I mean, I think if you look at JT Barrett's career as a whole, if you ask an Ohio State fan, yes, I think he set the record for touchdown passes in the Big Ten, but is that really going to be his legacy at Ohio State? I think most people are going to say it was a little incomplete, and it could have been a lot better than it was, and injury definitely played a factor in that. You know, he battled coming back from that to get even into this game this week, but I mean, really, I think disappointed for Ohio State with how much potential they had this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on, we're going to look at the Big 12 Conference Championship game. This one wasn't even close.
No.
I'm pretty sure, if I recall correctly, all three of us picked Oklahoma.
I wish I did.
Oh, you went TCU. Wow.
I was going to go with an upset, and I figured this might be the one because you saw how Oklahoma's defense has been exposed all year round. And this was a rematch game, like we said, Usc beat a team twice. But it looked pretty good in the second quarter, and then it all just kind of went downhill from there. So.
Yeah, I mean, TCU hung with them for a half. I think it was 24-17 going into the break, but they got blanked all three other quarters. So they scored nothing in the first, third, or fourth, only scoring points in the second quarter. Baker Mayfield just lit up the scoreboard. The guy threw for 243 yards, averaged almost 11 yards of completion, and had 4 touchdowns, no picks.
Yeah.
On the opposite side, though, Kenny Hill had 234 yards passing and 2 touchdowns with interception. But it was besides in the first half, it was not a competitive game.
Crazy that Oklahoma didn't score at all in the second half in their first game, and TCU didn't score at all in the second half in this game.
Interesting.
So, tale of two halves there. I mean, going back to Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley, what a job he has done. You could argue that he could be the coach of the year, getting Oklahoma this far after, I believe, Stoops retired right away, like in the summer.
Yeah, it was rather immediate retirement.
So it was a very quick turnaround from that to now becoming the head coach. He's the 5th coach in FBS history with no previous head coaching experience to win at least 12 games in his debut season. So very impressive. A lot of that has to do with the fact you have one of the greatest college quarterbacks we've seen in a long time. In your, to your discretion. But I think, Mayfield, I'm pretty sure he locked up the Heisman Trophy during this game. I think
absolutely.
it's safe to say.
I mean,
he deserves it.
Yeah, no, I think he's played well enough, especially down the stretch and I know that there's 3 finalists. You've got Lamar, Baker Mayfield, and Bryce Love from Stanford.
Yes.
Running back from Stanford. But I do think right now it's the consensus that Baker Mayfield will take it home. What's amazing to me, though, just looking at some of the stats, there were 42 first downs in this game. TCU had 20, Oklahoma had 22. Yet TCU only ends up with 17 points. Oklahoma is sitting there with 41.
That's been kind of the story for them the entire year. I mean, you look at the Iowa State game, you look at the first Oklahoma game, and now this one. A lot of incomplete drives. They were able to drive the ball down the field, but just could never finish.
Couldn't convert.
But I mean,
and you can't do that against a team like Oklahoma.
If you're gonna go up against a team that's the #1 offense in the country, you got to complete most drives. And for the first half, it looked like they were doing that. They made a comeback, but you can't go 3 or 4 drives without scoring, or you're just going to be in a huge hole.
I don't know. I mean, Evan, you may not have the stat pulled up on this, but I do remember hearing something about it at the end of this game, how this was it had been a long time since we'd had a conference championship that wasn't – it was a 24-point victory for Oklahoma, so it was over 3 possessions. I can't recall in recent memory one that's been that lopsided.
There's been pretty bad. I mean,
unless
the
Auburn,
Ohio State-Wisconsin game was 59-0. Remember that, the Big Ten championship game 2014.
Yeah, maybe it was a Big 12 stat. Maybe it was just for the Big 12. You might be right.
Well, they didn't have a conference championship for a little while, but it has been close.
Still played
years
games.
past. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think Oklahoma's now 8-1 in Big 12 championship games, so they've always come out on top in those close games. So kudos to them. I think they've won like 11 since 2000.
It's their 11th Big 12 title, Oklahoma.
Yeah, that's impressive. That's extremely
and that is a record.
impressive.
That is a record.
I saw this pregame. Baker Mayfield was talking about a guy with a big head and a lot of confidence. He wore a shirt that it had been an updated shirt that said back-to-back Big 12 champs from last year, and he added and back-to-back at the end. So it's 3 straight pregame.
Press conference. You're talking about confidence right there. But like you said, no, Oklahoma pretty much dominated this game, almost a repeat of the first time these two teams met. This was their second top 10 matchup in 4 weeks, and TCU just outplayed both times. I mean, it's just not even close. Baker Mayfield, easily the game's MVP and probably easily going to be the Heisman winner. Like you said, this is Oklahoma's 11th Big 12 championship. That's a record. And there's not much else to say about that. Like you said, Bradley Lincoln Riley done a fantastic job in Norman taking over after Bob Stoops walked out. I will say, though, if I had to vote for Coach of the Year, it's not going to be Lincoln Riley. It's going to be Bill Clark out of UAB. The Blazers 8-4 this year. And no, I'm being serious. Y'all are laughing. UAB canceled their football program for 2 years in a row. Their first year back, Bill Clark gets them bowl eligible 8-4. They're playing in the Bahamas.
Yeah, but
Bowl.
UCF was 0-12 2 years ago, and then now they're 12-0.
It's
So
one thing to have a football program and not win a game. It's another thing to not have a football program for 2 years and not even have a chance to practice or recruit.
Yeah, I don't know
that's
if
fair,
you
but
see that.
remember now where that team's located. They're located in Alabama.
Yeah.
So where'd they go? 50 miles away from campus to get their talent? I mean, they're not.
Do you think the NCAA is going to want to give a coach of the year after they just got banned for 2 years coming off of that?
Yeah.
If UAB's going 50 miles away to get their talent, that talent's already in Tuscaloosa or in Auburn. There's no way that UAB has an easy recruiting job down there. And for that matter, neither does UCF with all the talent coming out of Florida and all the different places they've been to.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no denying Scott Hall's done a fantastic job and deservedly got the Nebraska job as an alum. So
Yeah.
for him, a great job he's done down there, but I would still have to.
Well,
I could even say Brian Kelly. You could
Possibly
even throw that in,
with
too.
Notre Dame. We got to move on, though. We're going to roll over now to the SEC championship game. Another one that really wasn't that close. Auburn took the lead in this one early. Blanking Georgia in the first quarter. It was 7-0 Tigers, but it was all dogs after that. 28-7 win for Georgia. Finished the season 12-1, and they have punched their ticket to the college football playoff.
A great team to see go to the playoff. Kirby Smart, I believe this was his alma mater, gets them back to national prominence. He talked about rolling over to this game. Auburn was the team that rolled over, starting up 7-0, and you saw within the first 5-10 minutes, it looked like it was going to be an exact mirror image of the first game that they played. But kudos to Georgia's defense. Roquan Smith, I believe his name is, MVP of the game, 2 turnovers everywhere on the field. I even heard some Heisman talk with him as a dark horse. He won't win it, but as a defensive guy. Very impressive. This is Georgia's first SEC title since 2005.
Yeah.
And I thought this was even crazy. They haven't won a national championship since 1980. And all the teams around them seem to have locked up a national championship except for them. So
That's interesting because that's about the time that Clemson won
the
their
year before. Yeah.
previous national championship with 81. Yeah, I mean, this game didn't have a whole bunch of time to watch it, but, Fromm looked impressive for Georgia. I mean, he had 183 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. But Jarrett Stidham for Auburn, I mean, he still had 145 yards passing. I just felt like that Georgia was able to limit Auburn's big plays, and that really bode well for Georgia's defense. I felt like Georgia's defense played downhill for most of this game.
The coaching staff did a fantastic job of getting them ready. You can be certain that they watched a lot of film and put a lot more pressure on Jarrett Stidham this go around, which is something they didn't do the first time. A lot of that had to do with Kerryon Johnson's injury. I feel like his limited action in the backfield really focused Georgia more on Jarrett Stidham, as he was going to have to move the offense down the field. But, if you got him healthy completely, that could be a different game. But 28-7, I mean, the third-string running back for Georgia had more rushing yards than Kerryon Johnson did. So that right there is a stat that just blows you away right there. So I think a worthy champion out of the SEC. They've now beaten every team on their schedule, you could say, because they did get their revenge on Auburn. So good for them. Kirby Smart, tough, tall task against Oklahoma coming up, but great win for them.
I think it'll be a great game.
Yeah.
I think Georgia, Oklahoma will be an amazing
Defense
game.
versus offense.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Georgia's strength right now is on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, I don't know, Evan, you feel like that this was – because, I mean, for a lot, several years, I think – isn't it the past 8 or 9, the winner of the SEC? Or was that the Iron Bowl stat?
It was the Iron Bowl, yeah. We don't have that this year.
Yeah, because Auburn now is out of the playoff. But, I mean, still, usually the winner of the SEC championship game gets at least a crack at a national championship. So, I don't know. We'll see how Georgia does against Oklahoma. But what are your thoughts about this game?
I think that potentially we could see an all-SEC national championship, and I'm not sure how behind that idea I am. But I think Georgia came into this game with the right game plan and just the right execution to not let what happened the first time they played Auburn happen again. As you mentioned, Bradley, that freshman running back for Georgia, DeAndre Swift, he was not just a leading rusher over Kerryon Johnson. He was the leading rusher in the whole game. 88 yards on 7 carries for a touchdown. And they spread the ball around well rushing-wise. They could not get that rushing attack going against Auburn the first time. That defense absolutely shut down Nick Chubb and Sony Michel. This time around, though, different story. As we already said, Swift, 88 yards and a touchdown. Nick Chubb, 13 carries, 77 yards. Sony Michel, 7 carries, 45 yards. As a team, Georgia rushed for 238 yards. And I don't care who you are, you're not going to beat Georgia when they're putting up that many rushing yards. So didn't help that Auburn star running back Kerryon Johnson was not 100% for this game. Stidham did not play extremely well, didn't play extremely terrible. 50% completion percentage, 145 yards and a touchdown. Didn't throw a pick, did have a costly fumble down in the red zone. So I think it just all came together for Georgia at the right time with the right game plan. And I think there was just too many things going against Auburn's favor to see them try to be resilient and win this game. So good for Georgia and good for Kirby Smart stepping in there, taking over for Mark Richt. Not an easy situation, I'm sure, especially being in such a tough football conference historically. But got them, back on the national stage, got them with an opportunity to play for a national championship if they can take care of business out in Pasadena. But it's going to be tough. But luckily, their strength, their defense, will be matching up with Oklahoma's strength, their offense, and we'll see if somebody somehow can try to contain Baker Mayfield, something that hadn't been easily done all year, and see if Jake Fromm can continue his short history of being able to step up on these bigger stages and perform like a freshman normally doesn't perform. I mean, he only threw 6 incompletions in an SEC championship.
Well, that's just like Jalen Hurts last year as a freshman. I mean, it's really impressive, honestly, some of the freshman quarterbacks that we've seen. I know Lamar has gotten a lot of the quarterback hype the last couple of years, but, with Jalen Hurts now and then Fromm, it's been really impressive to watch those guys develop and mature throughout the course of the year.
And Hurts was the starter. I mean, Jake Fromm wasn't even the starter from day one. I mean, Jacob Eason went down with an injury, and he had to step in and fill some pretty big shoes. And I think his first road game was at Notre Dame, so very impressive for him. He's really grown up. I think him and Stidham kind of flipped roles. It was great to see. I'm excited to see if he can replicate this on an even bigger stage next time around. So.
Well, last championship game that we're going to get into briefly, the ACC championship game. We had the Miami Hurricanes going against the Clemson Tigers. This one was
not even close.
Not close at all.
I'm sorry, you're Miami boys. Struggling out there.
It basically should have been a shutout. Clemson did give up a field goal towards the end of the fourth quarter, but this 38-3 win against the Hurricanes emphatically punched their ticket to their 3rd straight college football playoff. Kelly Bryant, MVP of the game.
Rightfully so.
Touchdown in the air, touchdown on the ground, 250 yards passing. I mean, he completed his first 15 passes consecutively, setting, I believe, an ACC championship game record.
There were 2 records in this game.
2 records.
Him, and then you had 4 Clemson running backs score a touchdown.
Wow.
Which is crazy. That was obviously going to be an ACC championship game record. You don't see that at all in championship games at all. So that was impressive. I think
you don't see backup quarterbacks coming into championship games. I saw a tweet briefly after the game it ended, and it was like Clemson is in. It was saying that Clemson has basically reached the level of we can put our backup quarterbacks in. Conference championship games. Like that's the level that we have achieved, and that honestly blows my mind. I know that Clemson football, I believe they put out a video today talking about Dabo and Dream Big, and it was about a 2.5 minute video basically showing his press conference when he first became a coach and to some of the things that he's told his team throughout his tenure here. But yeah, just really impressive from Kelly Bryant. I mean, the guy was expected to essentially be a placeholder after Deshaun Watson left. Nobody really, myself included, and a lot of other people, gave Clemson credit to even win the division this year. Not only did they win the division, they went 11-1 in the regular season. They win their 3rd straight ACC championship for the first time since the mid-'80s, which I didn't even know we had done that before.
They're the second team ever to win 3 straight ACC championship games. Florida State did it a while back.
Yeah, and this is our 17th total ACC championship, which is just amazing. And it goes back to Dabo. We're the attacking champs. They're not the defending champs. They are the attacking champions.
You talk about taking hold of the division. The Atlantic Division has now won 7 straight ACC championships. So this is kind of becoming like the baseball all-star game. The AL just destroys it every year. So Coastal needs to step it up. Miami's probably going to be the team to take those reins and go forward with them. But Evan, do you have any thoughts on this game? I know there's not really much to talk about outside of what we said, but.
Yeah, I mean, not just this game, but this whole year. I think this has been a hell of a rebuilding season for us. I think, going into the year, like you said, Kelly Bryant essentially supposed to be a placeholder until we could get Hunter Johnson groomed, to get Trevor Lawrence in next year to compete for that starting role. And here we are sitting at now 12-1 and number 1 in the college football playoff poll and playing Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. I think if you told a bunch of Clemson fans that before the season even started, they'd have called you crazy, and yet here it is, our reality. But like you said, when you look at some of the inside stats, we didn't quite dominate Miami as much as the score might show. Total yardage-wise, we outgained them 331 to 214. We did hold them to their lowest point and yard totals of the year, so finally somebody able to contain Miami's offense, which had helped it. They were a little bit depleted with injuries to Amon Richards and their tight end and having
But Rozier had a 9 QBR. It's inexcusable. I don't care who you have out there.
That's true.
That can't happen.
You know, to his credit, he didn't really have much help, but he did miss on a deep ball early to somebody who's wide open in the middle of the field by 10 yards. Just completely missed him, and that could have changed the entire momentum of the game. So, you know, impressive showing by Clemson in this game, and I think if we can keep up the level of play that we've established down the stretch, especially in the past 3 or 4 weeks, I like our chances in New Orleans.
Oh yeah, no, you've got to, you know, I know that right now I believe Alabama's favored, or it's either an even.
Point, but that could change.
Yeah, it's basically a coin toss right now. I mean, you are still playing Alabama, who has shown consistency for most of the last decade. But you know, when you look at the top 4, the teams that we've got in front of us, you've got Clemson at 1. You've got Oklahoma 2, you've got Georgia 3, and you've got Alabama 4.
I think that's arguably the 4 best teams we've seen in a playoff yet.
Oh yeah, and I mean
Top to bottom.
that's
Big
just.
Ten people can be mad that Ohio State got snubbed, but at the end of the day, the committee got it right. The 4 best teams in the country are right.
Oh, I feel so. I feel the same way. But you know what's amazing, like starting with Clemson, because we kind of want to take last little bit of the show to dive into the 4 teams that made the playoff, talk about them a little bit. Clemson has now had an FBS record 7 straight seasons where they finished the season ranked higher than where they started. And you remember where they started their rankings? They were 5.
5, yeah.
Preseason number 5, and last year they were preseason number 2, and they finished number 1. So to be able to do that for 7 straight years, to me, is I think one of the best ways that kind of encapsulates all that Dabo has done at the pro. I mean, it's just gotten better every year.
They're starting to receive the Bama treatment, and the more that you go up like that, up the rankings like that, year in and year out, the more you're going to get treated like a team like Alabama has year in and year out. I mean, I think even going into next year, if we were to lose half of our team right now, we'd still probably be ranked top 5 just because of what we've seen in the years past, how we start the season, how we finish it. But if this is a rebuilding year, I can't wait to see what it's like when it's just a regular season.
That's the crazy thing, is like this is technically a rebuilding year for Clemson. I mean, that's one of the headlines that ESPN has on how these teams got to the playoff. They lost Deshaun Watson, yet here they still are.
We had 11 new starters. That's
and
crazy.
only 6 seniors on scholarship, I believe.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys coming back next year.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I was looking at the schedule next year, what we've got. I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but it looks pretty favorable.
Well, you start out with Texas A&M, which will be a good game now that Jimbo's going to be there.
I mean, that's play him now, but now we do.
Can't get away from Jimbo.
And we'll see how Willie Taggart gets Florida State going. But going back to these 4 teams, I think the matchups are fantastic. I think you have a lot of strong defenses teams outside of Oklahoma. So you've got a lot of different styles. You've got the high-powered offense for Oklahoma versus a great defense in Georgia. You've got a freshman quarterback. You've got some senior quarterbacks. And you've got a lot of playmakers out there. I think it's really going to be entertaining.
I mean, Oklahoma, though, you go back to them kind of being more on the offensive side of the ball. They've won their last 7 games by an average margin of 28 points.
Remember who they're playing.
But that was a 24-point victory over TCU, who you picked to beat them in the Big 12 championship game.
We've been wrong a lot this year.
So I mean, that's the beauty of college football. I can't wait for Bowl Mania. But, I mean, that's the thing is.
Again, by the way.
What's that?
Y'all are going down again, by the way.
Oh yeah, we still need to make that Bowl Mania. I mean, I feel like the only miscue for Oklahoma these past 2 months has been Baker Mayfield's headlines.
Yeah.
The crotch grab, the F-bombs, it has nothing to do with football. It's all off the field stuff.
Patriots almost.
If they could get rid of the off the field issues, I think honestly Oklahoma would be favored in the Georgia game and whoever they're playing in the championship game, because they've just been so hot.
You could say that, but I mean, from what I hear from not only Lincoln Riley but the rest of the team is that while he can go a little far sometimes, speaking to Baker Mayfield, that's what really gets the team motivated.
Yeah.
And it builds.
I believe it.
His confidence is contagious, and they love it. They build off of it, and like you've said, they've been scoring a lot off of it. So hopefully he doesn't pull any of those antics out in Pasadena. I doubt he will on such a big stage. I know the NFL draft scouts have been saying it could hurt his stock. I don't think he's worried about that right now at all. But we'll see if the distraction of the Heisman Trophy gets to his head at all. It definitely derailed Lamar's end to his season last year. So hopefully a little different scenario there. But initial thoughts, I mean, do you have any predictions right off the bat of these games coming up? I feel really confident Clemson's strong.
I think that, man, I mean, okay, instead of picking teams, because I do want to kind of save that for Thursday with the bowl preview show, I think what we should probably do is the three of us need to decide which of these games we feel like is going to be the most entertaining.
Okay.
Not necessarily who's going to win the game, and then we want your opinion on this too. But for me, I feel like when I look at the Rose Bowl,
yeah, I would agree.
I think that's going to be the better game. I think the Sugar Bowl will be a fantastic game. I'm not going to say who I think will win, but I think that looking at the Rose Bowl, looking at Georgia's play, looking at Oklahoma's play, I think that, to me, is the most intriguing matchup.
I think because there's just so much of a sense of what could happen and what could not happen in that game. I mean, you could if Oklahoma's offense completely shuts down and Georgia has a great game plan, because they got a month to prepare.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that. They
got a month to heal and prepare.
Well, that also helps Bama, too, if you want to talk about healing. But I think, you've got a lot of wild cards in this game. You got Baker Mayfield is obviously, if he gets to 30 points, it seems like it's over. It's lights out. Yeah. But, I mean, from what we've seen in Georgia.
Unless Fromm just goes out with like a gunslinger and throws 4 touchdowns.
Could be a slobber knocker. You never know.
It could be a slobber knocker, Could be. I mean, which one, Evan, do you feel like is going to be the most intriguing matchup between these two semifinal games?
Alabama-Clemson round 3 down in New Orleans. I know it's not for the national championship this time, but you love to see a rematch of a rematch here. And the last two times, I should say, both of these teams played. I think we can all agree, whether you're a Clemson or an Alabama fan or a neither fan, that they were some of the most entertaining games in recent history.
Absolutely.
The first national championship, we weren't really sure what to expect. Didn't really like our chances just because of how much of a juggernaut Alabama is. And in round 2, we felt a little bit better about it. Came out a little bit better in the end, too, in that game. Obviously coming last second and was probably the best game, actually easily the best game of the 2016 season. So I think set them up again for ratings and money and whatever other conspiracy theorists want to throw out. I think Alabama is one of the 4 best teams in the country. I think they deserve to be number 4 and deserve to be in the Sugar Bowl against Clemson. And I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think Clemson at our best, as we saw against Miami. I think Alabama at their best, as we maybe haven't seen recently, especially in that Auburn game. You pit the two of them together, Nick Saban, Dabo Swinney, they know each other well at this point. Give them a month to prepare and then let them go at it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
It's kind of like, the first game was episode 4, Star Wars. Nobody really expected.
Can we cut the show off?
Nobody really expected it to be good, but when it was over, everyone was ecstatic. And then you had the second matchup, which was episode 5, by far the best in the trilogy. Everybody knew it was going to be a good game leading up to it, and it was amazing. And now you've got the third matchup, episode 6. It's going to wrap everything up. It's the final chapter. I don't see these two teams playing each other again in the postseason for a while. My reasoning is because I think Alabama's not going to. I think they've already hit their pinnacle. I think Clemson is still I think they're still moving in an uphill trajectory. But I think that Alabama's kind of on the downslope. I don't see them staying as relevant as they have been these last couple of years in the near future.
Well, let's hope they don't have another Star Wars movie for a while. If you want to say that.
That's my analogy. Like I said. 4, nobody was really expecting it to be that good of a game. 5, everybody knew it was going to be a good game. And 6, I think, is going to be the final chapter. Now, which team gets the edge?
As long as Dabo Swinney doesn't pull out a lightsaber.
I did see a stat. You mentioned, because that could be a very entertaining game as well. It's tough to pick between these two. The last time you had, in a playoff or a national championship, the top 2 defenses face off was the Alabama-Notre Dame game a couple years ago, and we all saw how that went. And I believe Bama was the second-rated defense, and Notre Dame was first. Clemson's now 1, and Alabama's 2 this year. So if history repeats itself, this could slide towards Bama, but everyone seems to be picking Clemson. So
everyone?
All right, well, me.
Okay. I mean, he went ahead and gave away his pick, but like I said,
you seem to be giving away your pick.
We'll just talk about it on Thursday for the Bowl Mania show, because like I said, we're again this year, like we did last year, going to make a Bowl Mania group. Call it After Further Review. We hope that y'all will join us for that. I know the Bear, Evan McDowell, will be in it. We'll see if
already there.
No, we can keep him out.
We'll see if he can retain his title and stay undefeated. But I think, like I said, there's a lot of – and we haven't even really touched on the New Year's Six Bowls, which have a lot of great matchups.
Oh, my gosh, they're good.
So we have a lot to talk about Thursday. Be sure to join us for our semester finale of After Further Review. We will be back in the spring to bring you some off-season action. But that's pretty much going to wrap it up, though, for tonight's show. We appreciate Evan McDowell, as always, being on the mic back in the control room. We had Taylor running audio and Scout on Switcher.
I believe I see Tom through the creaking
Tom
door.
might be there
Tom's a
somewhere in the
loyal
back.
fan
We've
back
got,
there.
Having a good old time
again,
back here in the
thanks
control room.
from Bradley Kendall. I'm Jay Smith. This has been After Further Review.
Thanks for watching.